Okay. So I have to admit, I did not, there's some things that I was supposed to do last week that I haven't done. One of them was um, splitting up the, what was it? Where's my notes from that? Declarations um, into definitions. So that has not been done yet. And then was it the signature or the no, it was the affirmation that was missing from the schema right now, right?
Yes. Um, the affirmation is missing the signature.
All right, right. Okay. So the okay, got it. Got it. Okay. So I have not done those two things. It's completely dropped off my radar. So I will get those done this week. Um, other than that, do we want to look at the definitions again? Because words matter.
I think
Uh,
before we do that, I had one topic I just wanted to
sure.
ask. I'm fairly involved with the Toto folks on a variety of things.
Mhm.
And I think I know this is recorded, so I'm gonna be polite in how I say this. I know the feathers are a little ruffled about the term attestations. Is there a better term that we could be using for what we're doing? Because I view a lot of what we're doing here as like standards compliance more so than maybe what in Toto's trying to achieve, and having that kind of be some level of clarification between those two. I
Mhm.
think would help get people on board more so, and may not confuse,
Yeah.
not may not muddy the waters as much.
Um, our I typically refer to the Cambridge Dictionary for a lot of different things, and um, and you know the definition of an attestation in most English contexts is a formal statement that you can make or officially say, which is true. And that is very different than I think what the in toto attestations are. It's more like evidence based. And then what we're trying to do, yes, it can be evidence because we can collect that evidence, but it's more about the actual testimony, right? It's more about the actual assertion that, we are doing X, like training developers once a year or whatever the case is. Um, the I don't think there's really a good I mean both uses of that the word attestation unfortunately are correct. So there's really not another word for it.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I mean I respect and the work that the Intoto folks are doing. We're actually trying to adopt it at ServiceNow. It's all good, but it's a very different kind of attestation than what we're trying to capture here. Um,
So,
and
so I guess a counterpart here that I'm gonna say then is, and it's and dropping the toad out of the equation. I think an area of confusion that we should clear up is even within the CycloneDX spec, we have this new area with like standards and declarations and all that. We also though have like component level attestation linkage in
mhm,
1.5, I believe.
yep.
And so I think having clarification about, well, why would I use one over another, or when's the appropriate use case? Um, I think that would be something that we would want to have. And that I think we've talked some about getting a document out there saying like, how would I use this? Justify, like helping explain it all. And I think that would be something that we'd
Hmm.
want to include in that document. Because I think for a lot of folks, I think people are thinking component level, and I think we're thinking kind of over here more at a higher level almost.
Yeah, and you can
Yeah.
theoretically you can do both. And we put the attestation in there not only to support the SSDF for like the PDF stuff, but specifically for the work that we're doing here. So they're actually very compatible. They're supposed to work together. And you're right, we should probably put together.
Oh,
Oh, he dropped.
yeah, we lost Steve.
I was on
Authoritative
mute
guide
there,
to
but I
SBOM. We
was.
should.
Oh, he's sort of back. Are you
Hey, you're
back?
back. We lost you there for a second.
Am I?
Yeah, we didn't hear the
Okay.
last minute of whatever you said.
Oh, sorry. Um, last minute, huh?
You were saying that they were
The
very compatible, right? And that they would work well together, and then you kind of dropped.
yeah. And that's really it. But my point is that, to your point, Ian, how we have the minimal guide for SBOM or the authoritative guide for SBOM, we should probably think about drafting some similar guidance for the attestations as well. Because the more people that I actually talk to, the more the attestation stuff is going to be relevant, even more so in a lot of cases than SBOMs themselves.
Yeah, and I just went through a perfect example of that is I just went through a CASA attestation to get access to the Gmail restricted APIs from Google, and there was just tremendous back and forth when I could have just given them one of these files. Like that really would have been a perfect use case for it. So I'm wondering if looks like we might have lost Steve again. I'm honestly thinking like, hey, a couple of blog posts to this effect would also probably be a really good thing, whether it's folks from this working group writing that up or something else like that. That's definitely something that should be done as a couple of examples of the use case here.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes.
Okay. I just stopped my video. Maybe that'll help. I'm not sure. Um, blog post. I like the idea. We do have a couple folks on our outreach team, and I will actually bring that up to them. They can start drafting some stuff in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and that's a great way to like level set and really set context for what this use case is. And Steve, you are still dropping for some reason. We're getting the digital echo even now. The robots have visited the chat. Oh no. What are we going to do without Steve?
I know.
Doomed.
I like
I'll be right
lost in
there.
space. Oh, then we can hear that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just going to get my headset on. Okay. We will see if this works.
Yeah, I was
For
actually
the,
thinking about writing a blog post in general on the CASA experience because not a lot of people go through that. It's interesting. And just I might even do a second one then on, this is how this type of a thing would have worked and made it a lot easier, for example.
Yes.
Just need the time for it. But I was thinking that would be a nice little thing because yeah, it honestly would have made life a lot easier in that particular instance.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of, I was talking to a director of product security at a large software company, like literally yesterday. And, especially when it comes to like SBOMs in the cloud, like most of us just aren't, right? By the time you do it, it's like you've got 1,000 services. It's like you want them all because, the moment that I give them to you, they're going to be outdated because we're going to be pushed to production like 5 minutes later. So it's really going to be all about the attestations. So I keep on seeing this use case come up more and more again. And with the work that we're doing here, the work that we're doing also in 1.6 as it relates to cryptography bill of materials, which is there's two main use cases, well, three main use cases for that. One is to just kind of have an inventory of the cryptographic assets and their dependencies for just basic inventory management type purposes. But the two primary security use cases for that is one, to be able to identify weak ciphers. For example, maybe you're running, I don't know, triple DAS or something, or some other kind of deprecated algorithm as deemed by NIST, or maybe an obsolete algorithm, that you shouldn't be using to begin with. And then the second security use case for that is really about post-quantum resiliency. So being able to identify quantum resistant algorithms or the lack thereof so that you kind of know what you need to get to in the next 5 years or whatever the case is. So those are the two main use cases we're doing for that. But anyway, both of these things really don't have, a little bit, but not a lot to do with bills of materials. The stuff that we're going to be working on for 1.7 also has really nothing to do with bills of materials. It's really about describing what the applications does, right, through what we call blueprints. But anyway, we're kind of morphing from this this bill of material format to more of a general purpose software transparency expression markup, really. And then, of course, bills of materials is just one thing that you can kind of express. So that's kind of where we're going with this. And, the work on the attestations and everything else, just it plays right into kind of where we want to go with this whole thing. So yeah, I'll get with our outreach team, and then if either of you want to participate or make some commentary on the blog post, it'll probably end up being on the I would imagine it would probably end up being on the OWASP.org website, possibly the Cyclone site, but certainly the OWASP site. So it should get a high amount of visibility.
Happy to provide commentary and feedback for sure.
Oh,
we're biased. We help write the thing, but I think that's important.
I try to stay out of the commentary now. Yeah, I'm tired of seeing my own name or hearing my own voice. So
I think half of the point of that, though, is like conveying why we chose to do things the way we did, right? Like,
I am now the host.
Oh, congrats, Ian! Nice promotion.
Yeah.
What I was saying there, though, is I think it's important to convey like the whys behind why we did it, right? That's like a lot of the pieces that are missing from standards is the why. So if we can release a little bit of documentation along with it, with like, what was the intent here, right? Whether we succeeded in the intent or not, that's open to community feedback and revisions in later editions. But like, we should at least go out and say what we intended with what we built and why we did it the way we did. So I think that context is very valuable when we're talking about any kind of a standard.
Yeah, I think Steve, you're aware of it. I know Derek, if you are, but I've been working on a project called SBOM. So SBOM's on Nintendo. Don't get me started on SBOM versus BOM, but we are proposing that to the OpenSSF as a sandbox project that they're voting on the 4th. And the idea there is really trying to tie, like, can you get all the attestations that are generated as part of like a pipeline and get those all together and make them like kind of like into an SBOM that's verifiable, where you can say like this component traces all the way back to all the total attestations. And it's very much not supposed to be a computing format. It's intended more as like an intermediary format to help generate CycloneDX or SPDX. So I think that is also a key piece of this overall picture to me. Is I see this is more like maybe the overarching standards, kind of like what you were saying about like defining systems and overall compliance. And then the other half of it for me is, okay, like, how do I know I have the correct components in a BOM? Mm-hmm. How do I verify that? So that I think they're kind of different problems, but they're all kind of in the same space. And I think
they are and they aren't. That's the thing. I view them as not necessarily hierarchical, but very closely tied to each other, because
Yes.
like one of the standard things is, are you using up-to-date cryptographic algorithms, or are you certify that you're not using corrupted or invalid, weak crypto algorithms, right? If our software bill of materials happen to include that bit of information, right, we could automatically map the two together and then answer that question without having to do work. So granted, we're a long way away from that right now, but like having these two things as part of the same standard here makes that very easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then with something like SBOMIT, when you're talking about going across multiple standards, I don't envy you the work there, but you can do that same kind of linking there, and that will make the entire process a lot easier in the long run. Even to the point where if you're pulling in a piece of software, you can check what cryptographic library it's using and potentially deny it if it's not using an up-to-date algorithm. Like that kind of functionality can be built on top of this stuff, and it becomes very powerful if we do that. So yeah, I'm honestly excited to see where that goes. And another example would be, Amazon. We use AWS extensively in our startup, and I've had to answer a lot of questions around what crypto we actually use. Well, it's really hard to do that with KMS, because KMS they've got a page where they update, right? But like which component are we actually using if we're using this particular symmetric key feature, right? Or if we're using the integrated S3 piece. It'd be great if I could just have a CycloneDX file that had that from Amazon, and I could just include that with my stuff and be done with it. So
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity is very, very interesting with all of the pieces and how they work together.
Well, when we get 1.6, I'm finally back, by the way. Zoom just decided to drop me again. So I don't think it likes me today. But yeah, when 1.6 drops, hopefully later this year, you'll have to make a feature request into Amazon to AWS to have them add that. I think that would be a killer feature, personally.
Yeah, I'd love to see that from
some
Amazon, Azure, everybody, because when I was working back at PayPal, we leveraged the KMS service and built a translation layer in front of it, specifically so we could assert that we were using the crypto standards that PayPal wanted to use, because we didn't have a way of asserting that was always going to be the case if we didn't do it that way. And this would have saved, like that was a 6-month project. It would have saved a tremendous amount of time and energy.
Yeah, for sure. I know there's some open source tools, commercial tools arriving to basically analyze code. There's static analysis tools that are going to be adding support for this. But for those black box things, well, you can't necessarily analyze, right? It's a service. Yeah, getting that kind of transparency would be just so useful.
I could envision even Amazon, releasing the CycloneDX file of their stack for the different target audiences, right? Like if they did that and they testified to that, put it in their compliance hub, then we could just download it and that checks the box. Like that
Right.
just streamlines that workflow so much. Honestly, have we reached out to anybody like Vanta or one of those audit platforms to see if there's any interest in using this or leveraging this perhaps, or pushing for its use more? Because they have a lot of integrations and it might be useful to them to do something like, or to leverage something like this.
I have not. I don't have any relationships over there, but if you do, feel free to reach out, and if they want to get involved and kind of participate or even just listen to what it is that we're doing, feel free to invite them.
Yeah, the CISO
yeah.
of our investment parent company has a relationship with them, so I'll reach out to him and see if there's any interest in setting up a call or anything like that.
Yeah, sounds good. We Jeff Williams and I had a call scheduled with NIST last week. Jeff had to reschedule. I'm not sure when that call is rescheduled for, but so that's still a conversation that needs to be had. We need to follow up with the PCI Council as well, because we had preliminary full support from them, but we were waiting for like machine readable versions of their standards, even if it's like a spreadsheet, and we haven't got those things yet. So The last thing we want to have to do is try to, you know, maybe use an LLM or something to feed in a PDF and spit out a bunch of like CSVs or something. And we certainly don't want to do it by hand. There's just too much opportunity for mistakes. So, but I need to follow up with them to see if they can provide some machine readable.
I thought that there was a Excel version of it, or am I thinking just like a control catalog?
Yeah, I'm not
NIST,
aware
right?
of like
853.
Oh, well, the NIST we have. It's the PCI Council stuff we don't.
Oh, the PCI. Sorry, I missed the context change there. I was still on NIST. Sorry.
Yeah. The NIST stuff. There's you can get the spreadsheets of that and that sort of thing. That's not hard. In fact, I think Ian, you did the SSDF, right? You got the spreadsheet from that and kind of used that as a source, right? So,
Correct.
Yeah, but the PCI Council stuff is a little bit more difficult.
If you don't mind me asking,
I'll have to reach out to them.
You said you have a meeting with NIST. What's the intent? What are you trying to get across? Is it related to this or other things?
Well, it's related to, it's all about the attestation work. It's
Okay.
possibly talking to them about supplying their standards in this format, possibly even working with CISA on, attestation forms, that sort of things in the future, right? I think there's a time and a place for a PDF. I think that's perfectly fine, but for medium to high maturity organizations, a PDF
Sure.
is kind of like living in the dark ages. And of course, you're going to have to hire a lot of interns or, whatever in order to process those PDFs. So I think there's a time and a place for it. But if you're the federal government, you have 100,000 suppliers, you're not going to get 100,000 attestations. That's just not, I don't want to be that person.
Also, just in terms of saving time and effort in every single company that's doing this work anyway, having that machine readable format, for lack of a better format, a lot of them released in Excel. It'd be much nicer to have a rich object instead of a line in Excel. So here's to hoping.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that we're going to be chatting with them about. Hopefully we can gather their support. We'll see.
I don't need another meeting. But yeah, I'd love to, if I can, get invited if you have any system meetings around this and self-attestation forms. That is like high on my list of concerns right now. So happy to fly on the wall.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out internally in my employer, like, are we going to attest for every single major version of the product, or are we going to attest for the company? Or in some cases we can do kind of both, but not in all. So it's it's interesting. So yeah,
we're very much working to that exact same problem.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are. Yeah.
So unfortunately,
and you're a bigger company than we are.
I think the problem that I have for my employer is the variety of products. Like,
yes,
we have, I couldn't even guess, 15, 20,000 different efforts going on at any given time that just like vary from satellites to planes to cloud to God knows what else. That's the hard part for me.
Yeah.
The trick is quantifying how much time it takes to prove compliance for each of those pieces so that you can justify, a central repository of that compliance and, generate these types of files instead. So.
And then you also have the additional challenge because you also are supplying hardware. A lot of your products, quote unquote, are in fact different physical devices. You also have the additional challenge I would envision of what is a constituent part? Is it the product itself? Is it a replacement part? And is that also kind of covered in this? And then who does the replacements? If it's the U.S. government, do you actually need an SBOM for this? I would imagine those are really interesting conversations.
Yeah, and then adding like the system integrator perspective of all of this too, where we are also trying to work through what do we receive from our suppliers.
Right.
Is a huge part of it. But to be fair, I'll be happy if I get like quasi-realistic SBOMs to start with. You know, our I think this is more public information than anything else, but we're 100% CycloneDX, and so we're going to the point where like that's going into our terms and conditions. Like you're going to give a CycloneDX 1.5 or higher with these additional fields. Like we're going to be very clear about that.
Right. Yeah, is that what you're requiring from your suppliers, or you just don't care what you get from? You're just happy to get anything from your suppliers?
I mean, I think the unofficial stance is I'll be happy with anything, but what our terms and conditions are going to say that people are probably going to try to take exception to is going to be, 2024 is CycloneDX 1.5 with NTIA minimum fields plus license. I know it's a high bar, but I'm going to ask the moon, see if I get just a minor jump.
Yeah. I think a lot of organizations are kind of in your trajectory too, in terms of what they're kind of trying to do. So let me know if you need any support on that, or any assistance.
I think the biggest thing is I think when we kind of like formally announce those changes, I think I'm going to be pushing on my like executive leadership to be making that a public statement. So if anything, it's more like we want to make sure that we're making that a public statement in support of CycloneDX. So I think if anything, maybe help amplifying that message when that comes out.
All right, very good. I appreciate that. And if you want to work, with our outreach team on, case studies, that sort of thing, I can put you in contact too. Okay. Do we want to go through the definitions that we had? We've got looks like a half an hour left.
I would say we break and actually spend some individual time working on them.
Okay. All right. Is that okay with you, Derek?
Yep.
Okay. So work on these offline. Propose some changes to them.
Yeah, and I think Steve, if when you get to it, if you can update your branch, let me know, and then I'll update the NIST SSDF to match the updated spec and pull out the declarations from the standards.
Yeah, I got to do the same thing with the OWASP standards too. So
just let me know when, so then I can I will make the changes, but then I can validate it against the schema.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I should be able to get to that later this week. I have a few like standard stuff for Cyclone to do, some SCBS stuff to do yet, and then I need to do. I'm actually submitting. I was asked to submit a paper for upcoming First.org conference. So I need to submit that by, I think it's like Thursday this week, something like that. So as soon as that's done, then I will absolutely make those changes, which will probably be likely this weekend, Ian. This weekend I'll make those changes. And it looks like Jeff is joining us right as we are adjourning. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, sorry I'm late.
Yeah, we were actually about ready to adjourn. We've got some. We were going to work offline on the descriptions, and then I've got some work to do this weekend on some of the minor changes that we made. Decided on last week of pulling out the standards and requirements from the into a new thing called definitions.
Yeah.
So I haven't done that yet, so I still need to do that. But yeah, we were going to work offline on the definitions. So if you want to propose some changes, some edits to it, I'll post the link to, or is it still? It's probably still in the Slack, isn't it?
Is that the link to the spreadsheet or the link to the?
Yeah, no, it's a spreadsheet. The let's see, workstream
easier.
attestations. Yeah, it's in there. Okay, yeah. Ian posted it on August 1st.
Yep,
So,
I was in there before.
okay. All right, very good.
Okay, cool. Sorry I'm late.
Any last remaining thing? Yeah, no worries. Any last remaining? Derek, Ian,
No.
Jeff? Hey Jeff, if you want to hold on for just a second, let's chat about the NIST thing.
Oh, sure.
All right. I'll see you guys later.
Take care.
Cheers, guys. All right, take care.